In a previous segment, I spoke with Mike Bradley here about the innovations that the Nicolet IS-50 platform brought to the FTIR market. And in this segment, we're going to focus on the built-in ATR module. So Mike, could you remind us what the built-in ATR module is and why it's a valuable feature?
When we were developing the product, the Nicolet IS-50, we really looked carefully at the way customers were using FTIR spectrometers. And the number one tool that they had been using was attenuated total reflection. It's a very rapid sampling technique that allows you to just place your sample right on the crystal and then, if necessary, bring pressure to it to put it in contact with that crystal. And once you have that contact, you get a infrared signal about whatever's in contact with the crystal, and that gives you usually identification information that you can then extract the information you're looking for out of it. So that's the key element behind what is the ATR.
So what limits the spectral range with the ATR, and in particular, the low end?
Okay. Well, in this case, we also, by building the ATR directly into the spectrometer so that it wasn't an accessory, we were able to compress the beam path to get the optimal signal out of that diamond. The detector is actually mounted right up behind the diamond. And in order to optimize the spectral range, because diamond allows you to go well into the far infrared, we had to have a detector that could also go into the far infrared. So we put a FTIR detector behind that diamond that covers the full spectral range from the far infrared all the way through the mid-infrared. So first of all, you had the detector limiting the range. But in this case, we corrected for that, or we accounted for that by having that detector. Then your source and your beam splitter are the other big things. But again, this being the Nicolet IS-50, you have the ability to change those beam splitters. And we could bring in the solid substrate beam splitter, allowing us to cover the full spectral range into the FTIR. Now, the critical thing about the FTIR is what's called the depth of penetration. And the fact that as you go further and further into the FTIR, the depth of penetration out of the diamond is increasing. And eventually it increases to the point where you're not getting good signal. You're actually getting a very distorted signal. So that really limits your low end. As much as anything else, it's the physics of attenuated total reflection that limits your low end. And on the high end, it's exactly the opposite. The fact that as you go to the higher energy region, the near infrared, the depth of penetration becomes extremely shallow. And at that point, you don't get good signals because you don't have enough beam path. It all comes down to what's called beam path. And that path of the beam through the sample becomes too short and you just don't get good signals. So that's really the limits on both ends. On the low end, it's because it's beginning to penetrate too deeply and you're getting too strong of an absorption bands. Or on the high end, it's that you're not getting enough.
And that change in path length across the spectrum is why, ATR libraries, dedicated ATR libraries exist.
Right,
Correct?
and primarily in the mid-IR. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, thank you for talking with us about the dedicated sampling of the built-in ATR. We would be happy to talk with you more about how the IS-50 with the built-in ATR could optimize your workflow in your lab. Thank you.
Thank you.